Division. We can see it everywhere, between individuals, countries, and nations. Walls are often made from fear or hate. They protect us when we feel threatened, neglected, or abused. One wall is the Arab-Israeli conflict. This is a documentary about defeating it in a very radical way.
In 80, I was in the Scout. I was a teacher for the young boys who are coming to the Scout, how to prepare the bomb, how to kill the Jews. And for us, from our hatred, from our anger from the Jewish, we teach the young boys in the Scout how to kill, how to prepare the bomb, how to do a bad life for the Jewish. Because in that time, we was refused to see any Jewish in the old city.
In the time I be very young, I remember a lot of terror attacks. It's happened here in Tel Aviv and in other cities. I remember that all what I think that all the Arabs, it's terrorists. Because of these things and because I see a lot of bad things happen in my country, in my heart, I begin to hate very strong the Arab people. And I remember that all what I say to my friends in this time, good Arab, it's die Arab. I remember after terror attacks, we go, some group of people just find Arab people and beat them and revenge because all what happened in Israel.
I moved to study here, computer programming. The neighbors and everybody were Jewish. That was like the first time that I started to interact with Jewish people. So there was always waves of terrorism in the street. So people were more afraid from the Arabs. So when they ever see me as an Arab, they will, of course, they can recognize me as an Arab. So they will be afraid from me, and they would be treating me as a terrorist sometimes, even though I'm not a terrorist. So their hate or their discrimination reflected on my personality. So I started also really to not like the Jewish people. They didn't want to do anything with the Jewish people.
In Israel, Arabs and Jews are separated by language, religion, and culture. They do not have much interaction on their free time, and that feeds suspicion and hostility. Relationships between Arabs and Jews depend a lot on area. For example, Haifa is a very mixed city where both cultures live in harmony. But the closer you get to Jerusalem, the more tension you can see. But there are wallbreakers, Jews and Arabs. You can find them on both sides of the checkpoints. For security reasons, those who live under the Palestinian Authority could not speak with us. But we met Christian Arabs and Messianic Jews from Israel. They have found a solution for peace that politicians have not succeeded in. Raja Salame grew up in the old city of Jerusalem. From his childhood, he was taught that Jews are the enemies. Raja became a drug addict and a father of 6 children. For the future of his family, he went to a rehabilitation center in Haifa, inhabited by both Arabs and Jews.
And when I go there and I hear Hebrew, I was so scaring and afraid because I was looking to myself what I am doing here. with these Jewish people, and I was so scaring. And I remember that I go to the kitchen, I steal a knife, and I keep it with me for a few days because I was afraid that something will happen to me.
But there were kind people, and especially one Jewish man who helped Russia a lot. This melted his fear away.
It was amazing to see it and to hear the love that they are talking with me in a way of loving, not in a way of the enemy, that they are hating me or they are angry from me. No, we have complete peace and love in the house. Then I believe that one night that God came and visited me. He changed my heart. He took the stone heart in my life and he changed it. He gave me a flesh heart. From that time, God changed me and he gave me the love for my enemy.
Moti Cohen comes from a very traditional Jewish family from Tel Aviv. He felt hate towards Arabs because of terror attacks in Israel. As a teenager, Moti met Messianic Jews, Jewish people who believe in Jesus. At first, he resisted them, but later on, Jewish scriptures convinced him that Jesus, Yeshua in Hebrew, is the Messiah.
Something very strong happened in my heart in the time I started to believe in Yeshua. It's changed all the way that I thinking. I read in the New Testament something that I not read in any other place, that Yeshua say, pray for your enemies. Yeshua say that, pray for your enemies, and it's very touch in my heart. It's not just touch it in my heart, it's changed my heart. And I understand new things. I understand that all the conflict, it's not just because the people, it's a spiritual war. And it's very changed my heart. And now I have a lot of Arab friends.
Peter Nasser grew up in an Arab village in the north of Israel. After moving to Tel Aviv, he faced discrimination as an Arab. This resulted in him choosing to live abroad for years.
Back then, I also hated half of the world, probably, and hate, bitterness all filled my heart. And as I started to read the Bible and I started to understand that, really, first of all, I'm not Christian. Although I claim to be Christian, but I wasn't Christian. I was just a man that trying to seek peace by my powers. So I started to read the Bible and I really prayed and I said to God that, you know, I don't know, what can you do? You know, but I'm really desperate and I'm broken. If you really exist, if you can change my heart, please do. And that was the first time that I really started to feel peace in my heart. Peace that, you know, I never experienced since my childhood, that I, you know, was innocent and I started to go away from my faith. I didn't feel that peace, and that moment I knew that, you know, His love can change me, and doesn't matter the world, what they think about me and how they treat me, but, you know, God changed my heart at that time. And yeah, love and peace filled my heart instead of the hatred and bitterness that was there.
Peter did not have a plan to return to Israel, but when his life changed, he started to feel he should return.
And I did go back to Israel, and I really felt the love for the Jewish people. And I started to share this love with the Jewish people. I told them that, basically I'm an Arab and I love them, even though they, don't know me, they probably are scared of me, but I love them because because of Jesus, and Jesus is really Jewish, and that was like the first time that I connected that Jesus is Jewish, and he loves me, and he died for my sins, and changed my heart, and it started. This was the first time that I really started to connect with the Jewish people on a basis of love, not hatred.
Joel Yelsky is a Messianic Jew from Israel. He had a very complicated relationship with Arabs because of bad experiences.
When I was in the military, I remember an attack that took place in a village called Itamar, and a family was killed there. An Arab Palestinian person went into their home and killed the family. And I remember sitting in my base. It happened like very near my base. It was a big mess. Everybody was called up. And I remember sitting there that night. Nobody slept that night. We were up all night. And I remember, in a very clear way, my heart that night got filled with so much hatred towards the Arab people.
Later on, when Joel was working in a store, 2 Arabs attacked him, and he had to get 21 stitches on his head. After these conflicts, Joel did not want to interact with Arabs, but God called him to be a wall breaker.
And about 3 years ago, the Lord really changed my heart and took my life in a very new and different direction. And so I started looking for opportunities. Where can we really join in with Arabs to see unity within the context of worship and prayer, developing relationship?
Joel is working at the House of Prayer in Jerusalem. It is opposite the Temple Mount, a place in the center of the conflict. Just behind it, the younger generation is learning how to hate.
I am living in Christian Quarter, in the end of Christian Quarter, in the beginning of Muslim Quarter, and there is a school for the kids, for the small boys and girls, for the Muslim area. I hear them every day what they teach. They teach killing, they teach blood, they teach hatred.
In the north of Israel, Arabs and Jews often get along better than in Jerusalem. There is just a lack of communication. That was true for Salem Shalash, a Christian Arab pastor from Nazareth. He did not hate Jews, but he did not know many either until he went to Bible school.
It was historical days for me. We were 12 Arab pastors and 12 Jewish Messianic pastors. It's like the tribe of Israel and disciples of Jesus. And, we were together, lived together, even we have intensive courses that we spend in the hotel time together. It was really heaven on earth. And, for many years, I didn't know that there is real believers, Jewish believers in the land. When I met them, I felt that we are one family.
Several organizations work for peace and unity of Arabs and Jews. Joel and the House of Prayer concentrate on conferences that gather hundreds of young Jews and Arabs to worship God together.
And we saw God move in an amazing way. I mean, we just saw God deliver young people from bondage, from hatred. We saw people just hungry for more of God, and God really showed up in a very powerful way.
Some Arab and Jewish believers even perform reconciliation in their marriages. Peter, an Arab man, has a Jewish wife. They met during an evangelistic outreach of the organization called Jews for Jesus, where both of them are working.
So from that time, I started to like this girl, and I didn't think about it much that she's Jewish or not. But later on, after a couple of weeks, we started to date, and then I realized that she's Jewish, and I'm an Arab, and that was for me a step that, okay, I love the Jewish people, but this is another, situation here. Culturally, we're different. Thoughts and how we view the world and stuff like that, it must be different. And it was, even for my parents, a little bit hard that I'm gonna marry a Jewish woman. It's not common in Israel, and people are scared to do something like that. Even among believers, it's not something that you often see Jewish and Arab couple. So me coming from basically hating Jewish people, didn't like them, to loving them, and for her to come from also fearing the Arabs, resentment toward the Arabs, to come and marrying one, doesn't mean that we're perfect, doesn't mean that we don't disagree. But we can, there is a reconciliation through Jesus.
Eliel Foss, who is a Jewish youth leader in a Messianic congregation, has another surprising love story. His marriage is a living proof that Jesus can make friends of enemies.
I think God, in His humor, decided to give me a German wife, especially Jews and Germans. Jews do have some hate in their hearts. And, when we celebrate Holocaust Memorial Day, this wound is coming up again. It's something that I don't think time is going to heal. I believe this is only forgiveness can heal.
Forgiveness is a crucial tool in breaking down walls, because it does not turn a blind eye to hard situations, nor does it encourage us to hide our hate or fear. Forgiveness means giving them up. It does not always change our conditions, but it changes our perspective.
You have to learn to live within the conflict because it isn't going anywhere, at least not anytime soon the way I see it. I can't solve it, I don't have the answers to it. But we need to start looking for how do we live above that. And so that's why I see worship and prayer such a powerful vehicle towards unity, because it really sets our eyes on Jesus and away from the reality of what is happening around us.
Today, many people face pressure, conflict, and fear in their lives. Is it possible to rise above them?
I think we as believers, especially as believers, are not this worldly thinking, or being afraid of something. This is not our way, because God is with us. He is our confidence.
I think what the enemy tries to bring in more than anything else is fear. And that's what this conflict is actually, a lot of it is about fear, intimidation, getting people afraid of one another. If you can keep people away from each other, they'll never develop relationship. The conflict you see happen in Israel is very similar to what's happening in all of the Middle East. And I think also Europe is starting to experience that. And a lot of it has to do with fear of Muslims, terrorism, and again, it goes into fear and intimidation. But we know for a fact that God is moving, and thousands and tens of thousands of people are seeing the Lord for the first time in their life. People who would have never heard the gospel before. And there's a promise in Isaiah 19 that speaks about unity between Israel, Assyria, and Egypt. And that really speaks to the region of the Middle East. So more than just a little picture of Israel and the Arab people here, there's something about the Middle East that is happening, and there's not just a vision for unity with Arab people here in this land, but unity with Arabs around us. Israel and the Arabs of the Middle East, God promises that there will be unity there and they will worship the Lord together. And when they do, it's going to release a blessing to the earth. And ultimately, that's what we're pursuing, for God to release that blessing to the earth through the unity that we want to see happen between Jewish and Arab people together.
The power of the gospel is reflected in a very unique way when Christian Arabs share the message of Jesus with Jews.
And I'm here for one reason, to share the gospel to everyone I meet, Arab and Jewish, both of them. We want to tell them that we love you, Jesus died on the cross for you, and He wants to save you from eternal death to eternal life. And we want to make them jealous. And you know, we share these projects, you know, that with these people, you know. First of all, I visited a family, a Jewish family, and I shared with them, you know, a food package. And she was looking at me like this, and she was shocked. Arab giving Jewish food? Why? She said, why you are doing that? Arab and Jewish fighting all the time together. Why you bring food for us? I said, because Jesus teach me to love you. And I want to share with you about the truth. Which truth? It's your Messiah. This is your Messiah. This is your scriptures.
One question still remains. Can Jews and Arabs make peace without Jesus? There is a lot of good cooperation and efforts for peace in Israel. But unity in forgiveness and the love of Jesus seems to be a more efficient way to gain real peace.
If I wasn't a believer and they weren't the believers, first of all, I don't think there was any connection. I think they would be looking at me as an Arab, not as somebody a friend. And there would be this culture difference, barrier, background. This would be something that, a wall between us. I believe that Jesus broke this wall, as it's written in the Bible. There is no more Greek or Jew, as it says. We all one, and we all brothers and sisters, and that's how they see me.
With Yeshua it's different, because if now have a political solution, I know this political solution, it's just on the paper, nothing not happen in the art. But Yeshua, He changed the art. It's not about the paper, it's about the art. Yeah, it's like religious. Religious, it's a lot of time about the paper, but Yeshua wants to do the peace in the art. Because of that, one of His names, it's Prince of Peace, because He come to give the real peace. And this is what I see in the time that I be with Arab believers. I feel the peace. I feel that even if we not understand the languages, even we not agree about everything, but have peace between us. And this is what Yeshua do.
Actually, I never talk with the Jewish in the politics side, because if we touch this politics point, we will become angry from each other. So this is why every time I say the politics, it's not for us, because we are not coming to be angry from each other. We are coming to show love. The moment that we show love, we are in quiet and peace.
It's so easy to, in a split second, lose the unity, you know, get into arguments, and things blow up, especially if you're talking about a group with so many different people. So there's a lot of differences to work through. How we do church life, how we do family life, how we think politically and theologically. And you have to really overcome that. And the only way you can do that is by focusing on where you have common ground through relationship. As you build relationship, you get to know the person and you build trust. And when you build trust, you can start seeing the disagreements and you're not afraid to disagree. And that's very important because we will disagree. Me and my friend, we disagree on issues, but we have enough trust to know that that's not going to break our relationship. And reconciliation is not something that happens once and then you're done. Forgiveness is ongoing and it comes on both sides. You have to do it on both sides. And we have to learn how to continually forgive, allow our hearts to be tender with forgiveness, to turn to the Lord. I mean, you're going to experience moments of bitterness and you're going to start feeling that hatred come back up. There's moments where I start feeling that within my own heart and I have to turn to God and say, God, help me. I'm feeling that bitterness again. I don't want that. Psalm 133 has a very interesting promise. It says there how good and pleasant it is for brothers to dwell together. I really see that there's an anointing when there's unity. There's a breakthrough that happens when there's unity. God is there.
So suddenly you become part of big family. And this big family, you don't choose who is in your family, you know, and you realize that suddenly after reconciling to God, there are people that naturally you wouldn't be in contact with them. Naturally, it's not natural, you know, naturally you don't want to be with them. So I believe it's really important that the Christians, we really understand the message of one new man. That on the cross, it says in Ephesians, He died for us. And through Him, through His blood, we are one new man, Jew and Gentile.
If Jesus can unify Arabs and Jews and make brothers out of enemies, is there any wall of hate or fear in our lives that He would not be able to break down as well?